Everyone knows the story. Wedding in Cana. Wine runs out. Jesus turns water into wine. Miracle number 1. But here's the problem with that summary. It misses almost everything important about what actually happened. The wine is almost incidental. What John is doing in this story, what Jesus is doing, is something far larger, far stranger, and far more significant than a last-minute catering rescue. This is not a story about hospitality. It is not a story about abundance. It is not even, primarily, a story about a miracle. It is a story about who Jesus is, what he has come to replace, and what the best looks like when it finally arrives. The version of this story most people have heard is sanitized down to a single data point. Jesus made wine at a party. Miracle confirmed. But John, who was there, who watched this happen, tells the story in a way that makes it unmistakable. Every detail is load-bearing. Nothing is accidental. Every element of this account points beyond itself to something that will not be fully understood until the end of John's gospel. Keep this question with you as we go. What was actually being replaced? The wedding is at Cana in Galilee. The year is approximately AD 30. A wedding in first-century Jewish culture was not a 2-hour ceremony with a reception to follow. It was a week-long celebration. A community event, an honor event, a feast that the host family had likely saved and planned for months or years. Running out of wine midway through was not merely an inconvenience. It was a social catastrophe. It carried the weight of public shame, the kind of failure that would follow a family for years. The ancient world ran on honor and shame in ways that modern Westerners often underestimate. Mary, the mother of Jesus, is present. She notices the crisis before it becomes public. She goes to her son, not to the stewards, not to the host. And she says, simply, "They have no wine." This is not a polite observation. It is a request. She is asking Jesus to do something. And what she is assuming in that request is already remarkable. She believes her son can solve this problem in a way no one else can. Jesus' response is one of the most misunderstood lines in the New Testament. He says, in most translations, "Woman, what does this have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." The word woman is not cold or dismissive. In Greek, it is gynai. It is actually a term of respect, the same word Jesus uses from the cross when he entrusts his mother to the beloved disciple. He is not rebuking her, but the second part of his response is crucial. My hour has not yet come. Throughout John's gospel, the word hour appears 11 times. Every single time, it refers to the same thing, the crucifixion, the cross, the death and resurrection that is the destination toward which the entire gospel is moving. Jesus is not saying, this is not the right time for a miracle. He is saying, what I am about to do will set something in motion that cannot be stopped. Are you ready for that? Mary hears whatever she hears in that response, and she acts as though the answer was yes. She turns to the servants and says 4 words that may be the most important, 4 words any human being has ever said about how to respond to Jesus. Do whatever he tells you. That sentence will be worth returning to. There are 6 stone water jars standing nearby. John tells us this with the specificity of someone who wants you to notice. Each jar holds 20 to 30 gallons. 6 jars, 120 to 180 gallons of water. But John does not just tell us how big the jars are. He tells us what they are for. They are the purification jars, used for the ritual cleansing that Jewish law required. Washing hands before meals, washing vessels, the ceremonial purification practices of the law of Moses. These jars were not decorative. They were functional, religious objects representing the entire system of ritual purity that had defined Jewish religious life for over 1,000 years. The covenant between God and Israel mediated through law, through ceremony, through the careful observance of external cleansing rites. They are, at this moment, empty. Jesus says, fill the jars with water. The servants fill them to the brim. 120 to 180 gallons of water poured into the vessels of the old purification system. Then, draw some out and take it to the master of the feast. The servants draw it out. And what comes out is wine. Not acceptable wine, not adequate wine. The best wine anyone at that wedding has tasted. The master of the feast does not know where the wine came from. The servants know. But the master calls the bridegroom over and says something that John records with enormous care. Everyone serves the good wine first, and when people have drunk freely, then the poor wine. But you have kept the good wine until now. He is describing the standard human practice: front-load the quality, coast at the end. Give people the good stuff while they can still taste it. Save the inferior for later. But this wine that has come from the purification jars of the Old Covenant, is better than anything that came before it. You have kept the good wine until now. John ends his account of this event with a statement that is the whole point. This, the first of his signs, Jesus did at Cana in Galilee and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him. Note what John calls it: not a miracle, a sign. The Greek word is semeion, something that points beyond itself to something else. A signpost, not the destination. The sign points to the glory. The glory is what the disciples saw, and what they saw produced faith. John is not telling a story about wine. He is telling a story about glory, about the moment when the disciples first saw, in a concrete, physical act, who Jesus actually was, what he had come to do, what he was about to replace. The 6 stone jars are the key to the whole story. They represent the law, the Old Covenant, the entire system of ritual purity and external cleansing that had been the structure of Israel's relationship with God. These practices were not wrong. They were given by God. They had meaning. They served their purpose. But they were always designed to point beyond themselves to something that was coming. The prophets had said it. Jeremiah had promised a new covenant, not written on stone tablets, but on the human heart. Ezekiel had spoken of God putting his spirit within his people. Isaiah had described a feast of rich food and well-aged wine on the mountain of the Lord, a celebration of the end of death itself. The water jars are empty. The old system has served its purpose. And Jesus does not set them aside. He fills them with something better than they were designed to hold. He takes the vessels of the old covenant and fills them with the wine of the new. The quantity matters: 120 to 180 gallons. This is not a small, cautious miracle. This is extravagant abundance, enough wine for the entire week-long celebration and then some. The new covenant does not arrive in measured doses. It arrives as overflow. This is the character of what God does when he finally acts. Not the minimum, not just enough, more than enough. The good wine saved for last. The best arriving at the moment when the old system has run dry. The timing matters. Jesus said, "My hour has not yet come." The full replacement. The death that would accomplish what the sacrificial system had always pointed toward. The resurrection that would inaugurate the new creation. That was still ahead. The cross has not happened yet. This first sign is a preview, a glimpse. The disciples see the glory and believe, but they are seeing the first movement of something that will not be complete until the final hour, until the cross, until the tomb is empty. Cana is not the destination. It is the announcement. Return to those 4 words. Do whatever he tells you. Mary has already understood something that the disciples are only beginning to see. She does not explain to Jesus what to do. She does not suggest a solution. She goes to the servants, the people who will actually be involved in whatever happens, and she removes every obstacle to obedience. Do whatever he tells you. She does not know what he will do it. She does not know how he will do it. She has no plan, no mechanism, no guarantee. She has only this: she knows who he is, and she knows that knowing who he is sufficient. The rest is his problem. This is not blind obedience to an unknown authority. This is informed trust in a known person. Mary has watched Jesus for 30 years. She knows what she is dealing with. Her instruction to the servants is the distilled wisdom of a lifetime of proximity to the Son of God. Whatever he says, do it. The servants do whatever he tells them. They fill the jars. They draw out the water. They carry it to the master of the feast. They do not know what is in the jars. They do not know what they will be serving. They act on instruction before they have evidence of the outcome. And the outcome is the best wine anyone has tasted. Obedience precedes the evidence. The miracle happens inside the act of following the instruction, not before it. When John says the disciples saw his glory and believed, he is using the word that the Old Testament uses for the presence of God, the Shekinah glory, the fire and cloud in the wilderness, the weight of God's presence that filled the tabernacle at its dedication, that filled the temple at Solomon's prayer. Now that glory is visible in a human face, in a courtyard in Galilee, through the medium of wine poured from purification jars. The disciples see what they see. They believe what they believe. And John, writing decades later, after the resurrection, after everything, records this moment as the first sign, because first signs matter. They establish the pattern. They announce the theme. The theme John is announcing is this: Jesus has come to replace what is empty with what is full, what is old with what is better, what pointed toward him with himself. He has come at the end of the feast, when the old covenant has run dry, and he has brought the good wine. You have kept the good wine until now. The steward says it without understanding what he is saying. He thinks he is complimenting the bridegroom's unusual hospitality. He is actually making a theological statement about the entire history of salvation. God has been working through law, through prophets, through sacrifice, through 1,000 years of preparation. And all of it was leading here, to this person, to this moment. The best has been kept for now. What was being replaced? Everything that pointed toward Jesus but was not Jesus. Every ritual, every purification rite, every external law that cleansed the outside but could not reach the inside. The stone jars were never the point. They were always containers waiting for what they could not contain on their own. Jesus does not abolish them. He fills them. He takes what was empty and makes it overflow with something better than it was ever designed to hold. That is the miracle. Not water becoming wine, the old becoming new, the empty becoming full, the good wine, the best wine, the wine that has been kept, prepared, held back until the right moment, arriving at last. John 2:11. This, the first of his signs, Jesus did at Cana in Galilee and manifested his glory. And his disciples believed in him. This is how John wants you to read this story. Not as a miracle about wine, not as evidence that Jesus approved of alcohol, not as a feel-good story about Jesus rescuing a party, as a sign that points beyond itself to glory, a glory that would not be fully visible until the hour Jesus kept referencing, the hour of the cross, the hour of the resurrection, the hour when the fullest replacement of all would be complete. The stone jars were empty. The wine was gone. And into that emptiness, Jesus brought something no one expected, and everyone recognized once they tasted it. The best wine. Saved. Kept. Waiting for now. Do whatever he tells you. That is still the instruction. For everyone who has recognized who this person is. Whatever he says to do. Fill the jars, draw it out, carry it to the feast. Do it. The miracle happens inside the obedience, not before it. The good wine is still coming. The best is still ahead. Because this is who he is. The one who keeps the finest things for last, who fills the empty vessels of every covenant, every life, every waiting with something better than what ran dry. You have kept the good wine until now. That sentence is still being spoken, about everything he has ever promised, about everything still to come.